Hello dear students, welcome to Pen and Paper Chemistry on YouTube. We are continuing with our topic states of matter and this is lesson number 9 on the topic. In our last topic we did discuss the postulates of the kinetic molecular theory and we are now going to work on the same. We are going to talk about ideal gases and real gases today. So, just like we have ideal students and real students. So, who is an ideal student? An ideal student will submit the homework, will listen to the teacher, and participate in all games, activities, participate in extracurricular activities, and will be a happy person, will be a healthy person, will be a cheerful person, will be very cooperative. Oh my God, my expectations are too many, right? But who is a realistic, what kind of students do we actually get? Look around you and think, do we have ideal students, ideal people around us? Very, very difficult to find. Similar is the case with gases. We laid down certain postulates according to the ideal behavior of gases, how gases are assumed to be behaving, whereas real gases are how they actually behave. So let's understand the difference. So, what would be an ideal gas? By the way, please feel free to note down whatever is there in these slides. Yes, that's why the name pen and paper, because you would have these notes ready for offline reference later on. So go ahead, and moreover, once you have written with your own hands, it will remain embedded also in your mind better. Ideal gas obeys all gas laws under all conditions of temperature and pressure. A real gas, on the other hand, does obey gas laws, but only in a certain range, right? Ideal gases will obey the gas equation, the ideal gas equation. PV is equals to nRT, and we have already spoken about the symbols that we have used over here. So we have the pressure, we have the volume, we have the number of moles, the gas constant, and the temperature in Kelvin. We have discussed all of this in the earlier videos. Look at the new equation that I have put over here. P plus, oh yes, that's another small p, P plus an square upon V square into V minus NB is equals to nRT. Something different, right? Something different from what you've learned so far. Because in this video, we shall be talking about the derivation of this equation for real gases. Do we have ideal gases in nature? No. No gases are ideal in nature. Yes, you do have nearly ideal gases, just like you have nearly ideal students who will come close to our expectations, right? But honestly, we as teachers are happy as long as the teachers are happy learning, right? Let's go ahead. So, no gases are ideal. Nearly ideal gases are there, like nitrogen, hydrogen, etc. And these gases cannot be easily liquefied. And what kind of gases do we actually find in nature? Yes, we find gases which are real. That means those which will obey the equation P plus an square upon V square into V minus NB is equals to nRT. In nature, we find these. All gases are real in nature. So let's go ahead and understand where we went wrong in our assumptions in order to explain the behavior of gases. Now, How much deviation is there from ideality has been depicted with the help of this graph. If I have a graph of pressure, product of pressure and volume against pressure. Now here the red line denotes the behavior of an ideal gas. You remember that from Boyle's law, we said that pressure is inversely proportional to volume, or the product of pressure into volume is always constant, right? So the graph should be parallel to the x-axis. What do we see? Look here, when we start, when the pressure is low, almost zero, very low pressure, all the gases are starting from this point of the graph, that means the same point as the ideal gas. Let's take gases like helium, hydrogen, which are not so reactive. So hydrogen and helium, they are showing positive deviation from the ideal behavior. Their graph lies above the graph of an ideal gas. Same way for hydrogen, right? On the other hand, gases like carbon monoxide and methane, look at their graph. Again, they start from ideality at low pressure. You start increasing the pressure. Coming to intermediate pressure, they are showing a negative deviation from ideality, going down below the ideal gas graph, right? Methane even more dip, more negative. And then as the pressure increases, see, as we are going towards right, there they cross the ideal behavior and their graph shows a positive deviation. You notice over here, case 1, case 2, and further on we'll do case 3 as well. Case 1, ideal gases, it's a straight line parallel to x-axis. Case 2, hydrogen and helium, PV, that means now PV is not equal to nRT, it is getting greater than nRT. So we have a positive deviation from ideality, meaning to say, what does the Boyle's law say? That if you increase the pressure, volume should decrease. But because my PV is greater than the ideal behavior, that means the volume does not decrease as much, right? That is why we have positive deviation from ideality. In other words, since the volume of the gases is not decreasing as much, that means is it possible to compress these gases easily? No, they are not getting compressed as we expect them to be. So ideally what should be there is, this is my gas. If I apply pressure, then the gas particles should come this close. This is what I mean. But what we are observing is that the amount of pressure that we apply over here is not sufficient enough to compress the gas to this particular volume. In other words, your PV is greater than nRT, right? Have you drawn the graph? In case you are having any confusion in this graph, you will find this graph in any of the textbooks or in any of the reference books that you may have handy. You can take down the graphs from there as well. Here, case 3, negative deviation. That means at low pressure, actually at very low pressure, gas is almost like an ideal gas. But as you increase the pressure, that means you advance towards intermediate pressure. So I think I should write over here at moderate pressure. What will happen? Yes, the gas is showing negative deviation from ideality and then the positive deviation. Understood? That means, what does that mean? If positive deviation means that the gas is less compressible, negative deviation would mean that the gas is more compressible than an ideal gas, right? Have you drawn the graphs? In order to explain this, now we know that for a real gas, PV is not equal to nRT. A real gas is not obeying the ideal behavior. So we gave a factor known as Z or Z, howsoever you may call, is equals to PV upon nRT. That means the pressure into volume divided by nRT, some factor, because they are not equal. If they are equal, so PV is equals to nRT. If that means my gas is showing a compressibility factor equal to 1, and then this would be an ideal gas, right? So we represent it in this graph. What's the difference between this graph and the previous graph? Notice over here, what have we taken on the y-axis? We've got the representation Z over here, the compressibility factor against pressure, and moreover notice over here, now we are specifying the units in which we are expressing our pressure as well as the temperature, because we know that all these variables are dependent on each other. So we fix the temperature as well as 273 Kelvin. Gases show different behavior at different temperatures. Since we do not have to study that much in depth at this level, we are concentrating on the pressure taken in bars at 273 Kelvin. So if you notice, there's a slight change in your graphs over here. So the first one, ideal gas, obviously Z would be 1. Now if we are saying that the gas is not as compressible, so you see, look at hydrogen, look at nitrogen, they are showing a positive deviation from ideality. Same nitrogen, it is showing ideal behavior at low pressure, and then with increase in pressure, what happens? It is showing a positive deviation. In other words, for these gases, Z is greater than 1. So first case, Z is equals to 1 for any ideal gas which should obey the postulates, which can be explained by the postulates we listed. Z is greater than 1 for gases like nitrogen, hydrogen, which are not easily compressible, right? Got it? Look at the third case, methane, carbon dioxide. Now if you see over here, at low pressure, their behavior is ideal. Intermediate pressure, there is a dip, and at high pressure, again they start moving towards a positive deviation. So we have the third case, Z less than 1 for gases like methane, carbon dioxide, which are easily compressible, right? That is why. Now easily compressible doesn't mean that you put them in a you can easily compress them. Definitely they need a high pressure, but not as high as we would need to compress nitrogen and hydrogen. So for them, Z would be less than 1. Similarly, you can correlate over here as well, right? Note it. I've tried to simplify things for you with the help of this chart. Z is equals to PV upon nRT. So Z is 1, Z is greater than 1, and Z is less than 1. What is boil temperature or boil point? The temperature at which a gas obeys gas laws over an appreciable range of pressure is what we call as boil temperature, and it varies with every gas. It's a characteristic value of a gas. So we cannot say that all gases have this boil temperature, right? So that is why, if you notice, I mentioned the temperature over here in my graph. As I said, the graphs will change if you change the temperature. So supposing you come across a graph which is different from what we've drawn over here, just look at the variables that you are using over here. We are using compressibility factor and pressure over here at a temperature of 273 Kelvin. Also important over here is the unit of pressure that I have used over here, that's bar. If you take the pressure in atmospheres and you take different variables over here, your graphs will change. So please be very careful when you are comparing graphs from different sources. So now the question arises, why do gases show this deviation from ideal behavior? So we gave certain postulates observing their behavior. So why do gases show this kind of, show this deviation? Where did we go wrong in understanding the gases? Are we expecting too much from the students that we have a long list for defining an ideal student? Let's see where we went wrong. If you notice over here, these gases are showing close to ideal behavior at low pressure. It's only when we start increasing the pressure, the ideal behavior changes, right? Also is observed is the temperature. In the first slide itself, we said that they obey gas laws only at high temperature and low pressure. So what has this got to do with the behavior of gases or the postulates, postulates that we laid down in the kinetic molecular theory? The first postulate that we are going to talk about here, where we need to improve on our assumption, is we said that the volume of one molecule of the gas is negligible. It is very, very small compared to the total volume of the gas. The word that we used is negligible, right? Now, I've got these two circles. I put a dot in the first one and I put a dot in the second one. Compare, it's the same dot. Do you think I can ignore or I can consider the size of the dot in the first circle as negligible compared to how the dot is in the big circle? Yes, absolutely. Here, I cannot say that this is negligible. No, this is not negligible because the size of this circle is also very small, right? So a dot does not become negligible. Whereas this is like a big football field in which you put a small, tiny, a drop of water in that. So that becomes negligible. Or for that matter, even if you put a tennis ball, right? So that's negligible. Now, the same thing we need to understand when we are talking about high pressure. You've got a gas at low pressure, right? So there's sufficient space, and you've got a gas at a high pressure. Now, when you increase the same mass of the gas, when you increase the pressure on the same amount of the gas, the volume being occupied by this single dot compared to the entire volume, and the volume of the single dot compared to the entire volume. Now, tell me which one is negligible, the first case or the second case? Absolutely. So here I can say that the volume of one molecule of the gas is negligible compared to the total volume occupied by the gas. But here I cannot say it is negligible, right? Why? Now also, if you remember, we said that the molecules of a gas are hard, solid spheres, right? Now, when we said that the molecules of a gas are hard spherical solids, I've drawn a comparison over here. You see, this is a small volume, this is a bigger volume. Same number of molecules I have drawn in both of them. If I try to compress this gas further, okay, the molecules move closer to each other, right? They will move closer means they will ultimately occupy some space, right? So there is only up to a certain limit that the gas can be compressed by means of applying high pressure. So at high pressure, can I say that the volume of one molecule is negligible compared to the total volume? No. That means my gas is the gas molecules. I cannot consider the volume of one molecule. I cannot ignore that. So I have to take that, in other words, the volume which is available to the gas here would be the total volume of the vessel minus some volume of the gas molecules themselves, right? That's the volume that is available to the gas to move around and have that space, right? In order to account for this, we introduce what you call as the volume correction, hence the corrected volume. As I said earlier, volume available would be the total volume of the vessel minus the volume of the gas molecules. Now that volume of gas molecules is given by the factor NB, where N, obviously N, you know, it's the number of moles. Number of moles of the gas that we are taking. If you are taking 1 mole, then the expression simply becomes V minus B. What is this B over here? This is called as the co-volume or the excluded volume. That is the volume which is not available to the gas molecules to move around. Now this volume has been calculated to be 4 times the actual volume of the gas molecules. That is why at high pressure we cannot ignore this volume. What is the significance of this? What is the theoretical significance of this? One, we've given the mathematical aspect of this. Higher the value of B, that means bigger is the size of the molecules, right? That means smaller will be the corrected volume, correct? Let's go on to the next postulate which we have to talk about. Our assumption was that there is no force of attraction between the particles of a gas. Okay, let's test that as well. I've drawn 2 cases over here, low pressure and high pressure. Now, no force of attraction or repulsion is there between the particles of a gas was one of the assumptions. And we also said that these particles, they go and strike with the walls of the container, giving us the effect of what we call as pressure, that is the total force upon the area, right? Okay, so far so good, because each molecule, so I've drawn 4 over here, they have ample space to move around over here in this space, so they won't bother each other. Just like if you were given a big hall and only 4 students were there in that hall, what will happen? They will move around. They'll have a lot of space to move around, so they won't bother each other. Look at this now. When you've got a condition where you've got high pressure. Now, high pressure means this says, okay, I want to go and strike the walls of this container. Now, what will happen? The molecule behind says, no, 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 I will do that. So he tries to pull him back, right? This one says, no, 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 you're not doing it. I want to do it, right? So with the result, what will happen? Do you think that this molecule will be able to strike the wall of the container? So it is just like there's a big wall and you are running towards that wall and you're about to hit the wall, and all your friends, they see you and they hold you and it's like, no, 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 you can't do that, and they save you from injuring yourself, right? The same thing happens over here at high pressure. Yes, we can ignore the forces of attraction when the pressure is low and the molecules have enough space to move around, right? But here, because of high pressure, we cannot. In other words, now the pressure that you are observing, right? The actual pressure is a little more than that, right? So what we will call as the pressure correction, just like we said volume correction, that means the pressure that the gas should be able to exert is the pressure observed plus some pressure correction. So how do I determine this pressure correction? Obviously, pressure depends upon how many particles are hitting the walls of the container. In other words, pressure is directly proportional to the density, right? We have discussed this earlier. Also, how many particles are pulling this particle away from the wall also depends on density. More the particles, more the number of students who are going to pull this particle back and prevent an injury. Correct? So that also depends upon density. So what we've got over here, we've got the expression. So we say the inward attractive force is directly proportional to the number of molecules in the bulk of the gas. That's density. Pressure is directly proportional to density. That's what we wrote earlier. Also, the number of molecules striking the walls of the container is directly proportional to density. So what we've got, pressure correction is P plus AN square upon V square. Now A is again a constant. It is a value of a particular gas and we call it as the pressure defect, right? Higher the value of A. Now A pertains to forces of attraction. That means higher A means more forces of attraction, and more forces of attraction means the gas can be liquefied very easily compared to a gas whose A is lower, right? So let us now collate the pressure correction and the volume correction and come to what you call as the van der Waals equation, which was given by a physicist, Johannes van der Waals. And he said that you have the expression P plus AN square upon V square into V minus NB is equals to nRT for the gases that you are dealing with daily, called as the real gases. So ideally, PV is equals to nRT, right? That was the ideal gas equation. What's the real gas equation? PV real is Z into nRT, right? Just to simplify it, although for real gases we actually apply the van der Waals equation considering all the volume and the pressure corrections. Okay, let me divide the two equations. What do I get? Yes, so we will get V ideal upon V real is equals to 1 upon Z, or to simplify it, Z is V real upon V ideal. That means it's a ratio. Compressibility factor is a ratio of the real volume of the gas, considering all the volume and the pressure correction, the actual molar volume of the gas divided by the volume which the gas should ideally occupy at that pressure and temperature, right? Hope this video was helpful. We shall continue with the topic and we shall now take up a few numericals in order to clear the concepts further. Till that time, please make sure that you have revised the previous topic so that you can do the numericals with me alongside when we take them up in the next video. Till that time, enjoy being realistic. Happy studying to all of you.